the experience of the internet, certainly through using social media apps, is that you are shown content it thinks you're interested in, and it shows you that content because it wants to keep you on the platform for as long as possible and make you return as often as possible. Now, if you really like, say, cats, you might see a lot of cats when you go on these apps. When you go on YouTube, and 70% of what people watch on YouTube is recommended to them by the platform. But what if you're a vulnerable teenage girl who's had problems with depression and anxiety, and every time you go online, you're seeing more content recommending that?
Tech companies owe a duty of care to children to avoid reasonably foreseeable harm. They need to make the environment safe. You don't just build a playground and let kids turn up and go on the swings without checking that they're properly secured. In the same way, we shouldn't just let tech companies create these platforms that are incredibly enticing and just leave children there with no protection and no concern for how they're actually going to thrive in the digital world.
You cannot take a kid into a bar and give them a gin and tonic. The person who takes them in, the person behind the bar, everybody has a responsibility and everybody knows that responsibility. And yes, some underage kids do drink in bars, but actually a lot of underage kids get kicked out of bars. And that's what things like the Age Appropriate Design Code does. It says, before you think of rolling something out for a kid, you have to consider the risks of your data practice.
If we're talking about helping our young people, we're really talking about helping them understand relationships and how the world works. And it's just that their relationships are conducted, obviously offline, but also on this sort of particular online space. I think there's a real danger of a sort of a gap between those saying don't do it and those who are doing it, and you end up with this sort of sense of sort of generational mismatch you don't understand. Now that's ever been the case between parents and their children, but I think in this that gap feels even broader. So it's really about recognising and accepting the sort of value that this engagement has for that young person, and then saying how do we play that to our advantage.
A lot of the education and awareness that's delivered to children is not particularly enabling. It doesn't necessarily help them manage difficult situations. It just tells them not to do things. And I think it's really, really important, particularly when we look into the future, to remember that we have to balance different rights to which children and young people are entitled. Yes, they are absolutely entitled to expect that they will be protected from harm of lots of different kinds online, but they also have an enshrined right to privacy. They have a right to freedom of expression. So when we look into that near future of regulation, we have to remind ourselves that well-meaning attempts to protect children from harm might actually be at the expense of their privacy and freedom of expression.